that not all communities have been equally impacted by the pandemic. So it was very important for us to, do what we could to be intentional about an equitable recovery.
All the employers here eager to bring aboard a workforce that they need and a workforce of job seekers that are eager to come back to work. I think it's a perfect marriage.
To be able to have access to over 2,000 potential employees here that are qualified, ready to work, you couldn't beat it at a better place. LeadersUp has been terrific in partnering with us and facilitating this opportunity.
This is just a first step in the direction of the city of Inglewood, the city of Los Angeles, and more importantly, engines of economic opportunity like the Los Angeles World Airport to be a leader for equity in ensuring that opportunities are available in the community.
I got hired. I got maybe like 2 other opportunities. They told me they were going to call me in 3 days. I'm looking forward to it, leaving happy.
Good afternoon and welcome to the virtual discussion Beyond the Job Fair, Driving Inclusive Economic Recovery. My name is Jeffrey Wallace and I'm the president and CEO, and I'm happy that you're joining us today virtually so that we can discuss a tremendous partnership between LeadersUp and the Los Angeles World Airport. On September 9th, days after the federal unemployment benefits ended, I'm proud to say that the LeadersUp, the nation's leading talent accelerator for BIPOC young adults, was back in the trenches igniting economic growth in South Los Angeles communities. The efforts of Los Angeles World Airport to galvanize its commercial tenants serve as an exemplary model for employer organizations nationwide to follow in driving inclusive economic recovery. Over the past 12 months, LeadersUp has provided technical assistance to the Los Angeles World Airport to support its vision of being an anti-racist enterprise and a force that advances equitable access to economic opportunity for all. Our work over the last year with Los Angeles World Airport informed the implementation of a new policy that requires commercial tenants to actively recruit from low-income communities surrounding the airport, offering a livable wage, i.e. in Los Angeles is about $19.35 an hour. Today's conversation serves as a virtual debrief to dive deeper into the Los Angeles World Airport's hiring fair in partnership with LeadersUp and the broader partnership while demonstrating the impact model of LeadersUp. Through our partnership with Los Angeles World Airport, we were able to convene over 40 employers to ignite economic recovery. Here's a testimony from April Stewart, President and CEO of Skyview Concessions, illustrating how the pandemic impacted her business and how the hiring fair helped her recover.
My name is April Stewart. I'm President and CEO of Skyview Concessions. COVID has really, it was on the brink of decimating my business. I also own stores in San Francisco, and those remain shuttered since March of 2020. So to have this opportunity with LAX, with LAWA, to open up my own locations, my own independent locations, is a blessing, and it's a comeback. It really is beauty for ashes. I have really been impressed with a number of people that are coming through that are skilled and ready to work. They're hungry, they're ready to get back to work, and they're eager. So really excited. This has been a really effective job hire fair. And the airport has been terrific, plus with LeadersUp has been terrific in partnering with us and getting this and facilitating this opportunity. It really touches me to be able to be a part of this, to see so many diverse people here, all ages as well. It's wonderful to know that people want to come back to work because COVID was really tough. So now there are opportunities, and I feel so proud to be able to be counted among one of the employers that's actually offering jobs to people, and that impacts their household, and then that impacts the city, and then that impacts the county, and then the state. It just goes on. So one small part as a small business can really make a difference.
To uplift what April said, job seekers are skilled, hungry, and eager to get back to work. Contrary to the narratives that BIPOC talent are content with unemployment. The great resignation that we're seeing is not the result of people not wanting to work. It is the proof point that people want to work in better conditions. Young people especially are ready to work. The next clip from the hiring fair proves this. Here from Catherine Venezuela, a job seeker, as she shares insights to her job search and her experience at the hiring fair.
Kind of hectic, actually. I've been actually on the computer, staying up at 3 a.m., typing jobs on Indeed, on Amazon, just jobs for the past 3 months. This job fair is just a miracle because literally I just got the email. You need a job? Honestly, yeah, like I said, 3 hours every day, just up in the morning, we're looking for jobs, and now it's like 10 different opportunities and I never even thought about. I got hired, I got maybe like 2 other opportunities. They told me they were gonna call me in 3 days. I'm looking forward to it, leaving happy.
For 3 months, Catherine spent about 3 hours a day searching for jobs with no results. And with one job fair, she was able to secure multiple job offers. As you can see from both videos, the Los Angeles World Airport's leadership in driving economic recovery has a profound impact on employers and job seekers alike. Millions of people are still out of jobs, yet employers are complaining about acute labor shortages. This demonstrates how important it is for employers to evolve their approach to talent, to not only attract new workers, but to retain the ones that they have. On that note, I'll pass it over to Angel Roberson, board chair of LeadersUp, to introduce herself before we dive deeper into the discussion.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hello.
And hello to everyone out there on our social media channels joining us today. I'm so happy to be here. Looking forward to this conversation. As Jeffrey mentioned, I am executive director of Angel Foundation. We're a local grant maker who also happen to be a funder of LeadersUp and other programs that are really creating opportunities for young people. And also have the great privilege of being the chair of the board this year. And I'm so happy to work with such a wonderful team. Also joining us today in the conversation, we'd love to bring her on the stage, is Amber Mishak, who is a representative of LAWA. And hello, Amber.
Hi.
Would love if you would just introduce yourself. Love to invite you to the conversation. Introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about LAWA.
Certainly. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this very important conversation. My name is Amber Mishak. I'm the Director of Business, Jobs, and Social Responsibility Division for Los Angeles World Airports. We own a little airport that most of you have heard of called Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX. And we also own and operate Van Nuys General Aviation Airport, which is one of the busiest in the nation. And of course, LAX is the 4th busiest airport in the world. Not only do we oversee massive aviation operations, but we're in the midst of a $16 billion capital development program, meaning modernizing our terminals, our facilities, creating regional transportation connectivity to our airport, finally connecting it to the public transportation network. And so in my role, I'm responsible for driving workforce and business opportunity, diversity, equity, inclusion strategies, and ensuring that our contractors are partnering with us and honoring their commitments to deliver on opportunities. And so, I'm very happy to be here and to discuss how LeadersUp has been a really critical part of our ability to execute and really make real opportunity for some of the most, the communities most impacted by COVID and that are often underrepresented in aviation careers.
Thank you. So can we kind of pick up on that last point and tell us a little bit about this thriving partnership that you've had with LeadersUp? I'm gonna specifically talk about how LeadersUp has helped you all to generate opportunities for the community and really maintain your competitiveness.
Well, the great thing about our partnership with LeadersUp is that it's really been the foundation of a long-term strategy, a long-term plan to make sure that our workforce opportunities are driven by the demand of our employers, right? So we want to hire people for jobs that exist and for opportunities that exist today and tomorrow. So one of the critical things that we've been able to work with Leaders Up on is just we had already, before the job fair, before this event came about, we had already worked with them to address some workforce challenges through COVID, to talk about workforce resilience, and also to really make the business case for why diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism are actually integral to workforce development planning and long-term resiliency. It's not a separate thing over here. It's not a nice to do. If you're in Los Angeles, one of the most dynamic, most diverse and most globally integrated markets in the country, you have to be able to recruit, retain, and advance diverse talent. And so we had already established that foundation and that partnership through several webinars and different processes that we've done to assist employers and workers that had been laid off through the pandemic. So with that foundation, then once the employers were ready to rehire, we didn't have to make the case for why diversity, equity, inclusion, and making sure that local workers have local opportunity. We didn't have to make that case. We were ready to pivot and act on it. And then we could respond in a timely manner to our employers' needs because we had the capacity. And of course, Leaders Up, our partnership, enabled us to really expand the message. As you heard from the young lady in the video, people have been in the house, they still need employment, they're still seeking employment, but it's not necessarily accessible, right? You're not always gonna have the right combination of words on the algorithm to get your foot in the door, right? Or you're not going to be recognized as like, okay, here's a local talented worker who can add value to our operation. So, just the fact that there was strong messaging and ability to really get the word out in the local community, that made it so powerful, right? So we brought the jobs together with the local community. And again, it was talent of all kinds. We have Leaders Up was also critical to doing the analysis to see who really showed up. We saw people from all age demographics, all, educational backgrounds and so forth. And so I'm sure Jeffrey will talk more about that, but basically it really enabled us to demonstrate to our communities and to our employers how serious LAWA is about the commitment to expand opportunity, especially for local and diverse workers, and also that we're serious about responding to our stakeholders' demands for systemic change. I think we all know that, COVID and some of the inequities that have been, further revealed or exacerbated in these last couple of years have definitely created more demand that, you make change and opportunity actually real. And at the end of the day, as Jeffrey mentioned, the fact that we offer livable wages compared to many of the employers in our region, that overall is going to give us an advantage to being able to select and retain some of the best local talent.
Thank you so much. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be answering those a little bit later. Jeffrey, Amber just really talked about the why of why they partner with Leaders Up, but also the impact of partnering with Leaders Up. Can you talk a little bit more about the how? So, how does Leaders Up partner with employers to really help them be more competitive?
Absolutely, Angel. Just like LAWA, Leaders Up partners with employers to generate transformative career pathway opportunities that also meet their bottom line. We're in a diverse, increasingly diverse labor market, and a job seekers labor market where job seekers have the ability to align their talent with employer brands that resonate with their needs. So one of the things that Amber lifted up is that LAWA set a policy that required that all tenants pay a livable wage. That alone added a lot of brand equity to the employer brand of LAWA and its commercial tenants. Leaders Up promoted that to the community so that community members would understand that quality jobs actually reside with LAWA. That might just seem like marketing, but it's also positioning an employer brand, which is different than your corporate citizenship brand or different than your enterprise brand. with an employer brand that attracts workers. In the backdrop against the Great Resignation, it's critical that we continue to partner with employers that understand they must evolve how they recruit, retain, and advance the next generation of talent. Workers are also very interested in aligning their talent with employers that have a pronounced commitment to racial justice and being anti-racist. LeadersUp has launched a 100-day challenge that allows employers to take their tenants through a leadership journey to unpack the business and moral imperative to be anti-racist, as well as the unique challenges faced by BIPOC talent, increasing the proximity between employers and the next generation of diverse talent. The learning journey unpacks anti-racism, provides critical data that illustrates the impact of systemic racism, how anti-racism connects to organizational policies, procedures, and practices, and how to embrace cultural differences, how to advocate beyond the challenge. The challenge delivers daily content geared towards deepening your understanding of what it means to take anti-racist action. The challenge is just an example of an inclusive talent solution that LeadersUp partners with employers to deploy across their enterprise strategy to shift culture and create conversation and a common language around how to move forward in a more anti-racist and inclusive economy. We also pride ourselves, Angel, in really operationalizing best-in-class job fairs. And the LAWA SoFi Stadium Job Fair is a tremendous example of how an intermediary like LeadersUp can understand the demand of a bank of employers and leverage that demand for talent to generate transformative impact in local communities. As we heard from Vanessa in her testimony, she had been looking for a job for 3 months, and the job fair allowed her to get 3 offers in one day, which really shows the dynamic partnership between LeadersUp and our employer partners to bring equitable opportunity into the community, especially when we look at a community like South LA, where the unemployment rate is almost triple for African Americans and Latinx is almost triple the national unemployment rate currently. Beyond that, we organize our employers in what we call our Evolve Employer Network. The Evolve Employer Network is a coalition of business leaders committed to building an anti-racist economy. An anti-racist economy is one that doesn't where disparities based upon race do not exist in alignment with education, employment, compensation, and benefits. LeadersUp partners with these organizations to inform their training, hiring practices, goal setting, measurement, and accountability necessary to transform companies into highly competitive anti-racist workplaces. Membership also includes participation in our opportunity marketplace, where employers can access a pre-qualified pool of BIPOC talent through mentorship, professional development, volunteering, and hiring activations. Really, Angel, at the heart of what LeadersUp does is to help employers reimagine how to operate in a labor market that is driven by BIPOC talent. We're standing up against 2032. By 2032, America will be a majority, minority, or multicultural labor market and society. So we're working with employers right now to get ahead of that curve, adjust their culture, their operating practices, their recruitment strategies to ensure that they have the talent to not only drive their enterprise strategy, but also have the corporate citizenship values of ensuring that tremendous economic opportunities are in communities that need them the most.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I love that. I know we probably have tons of questions coming about what you just shared, but I want to pick up a few things and also ask you, Amber. So Jeffrey talked about the Great Resignation, the fact that we have a paradigm shift in the market. And you also spoke to that a little bit as well. So can you talk a little bit about how you see LeadersUp really supporting employers and becoming more adaptive, or kind of being more resilient and thinking about, now this new paradigm shift that we have in the market? Oh, do we lose Amber? Oh no. Well, Jeffrey, maybe while we're waiting for Amber to come back, maybe I can pose that question to you. How do you see LeadersUp helping employers to adapt? Really, now that we have a market that's really employee-led, not employer-led. What can or should employers be doing to adapt? And how does LeadersUp really support their efforts to do so? You're mute, I believe, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Well, the Great Resignation actually provided an excellent backdrop to shift worker power in a tremendous way. When we think about the trends that workers are expecting from their employers. It is about a livable wage and a wage that allows them to sustain their family and their own quality of life. Beyond that, workers want from employers clear career pathways where they can see how they will progress in a company. In addition to that, workers want psychologically safe environments that embrace their differences. So from a cultural standpoint, employers must evolve their culture to be more inclusive by design. Beyond that, workers want to be aligned with corporate citizenship brands that have a commitment to racial justice, as well as a commitment to taking care of the community that they operate within. I think there's a big shift in corporate America from moving beyond being a corporate citizen to being a corporate resident. Corporate resident really defines a strategy that is that embeds the corporation into the community, into the education system. Like LAWA has a fantastic partnership with Los Angeles Unified School District in the career and technical education so that we can ensure that there's a pipeline of talent into LAWA. LAWA also has a pronounced commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and has a hallmark of not just how they operate, but a brand that they communicate like we did through the SoFi and LAWA job fair. So there's a complete shift in paradigm of how corporations must act from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint, to create a psychologically and physically safe environment. Last but not least, workers are demanding that you pay them their value. And a big shift when you look at the trend in the Great Resignation is between 25 and 40-year-olds that were connected to entry-level to mid-skill level positions that weren't paying well. 60% of African Americans in the country currently are relegated to 20 occupational categories that pay less than $25 an hour. So this is a great awakening for our talent force, as well as a great awakening for corporations to not only take note, but to start to shift practices in order to be more competitive in the future.
Thank you. Welcome back to the conversation, Amber. So let me bring you back in here. So do you see, or what do you see as ways in which employers can adapt to really respond to now the changing market?
I think the thing that LeadersUp brings to the table that's different than some of the other organizations we've worked with. I mean, different organizations can put together a job fair, but what LeadersUp has brought to our strategy is really more so, again, as I mentioned earlier, a long-term approach, right? And so I think what we've seen during during COVID, there's a couple of side-by-side trends that we're seeing, right? So there's the Great Resignation, as Jeffrey mentioned, and then there's also just like the supply chain, crazy backups and these, the moves to automation, but also just even though the supply chain is global and it'll remain global, we've also seen the need. You have to have a buffer, you have to have some extra capacity, you have to have some additional resiliency, and so you're going to be able to have that resiliency and that capacity only by, as Jeffrey said, basically treating workers well enough to where they want to work for your company, right? And then another thing that workers want to see going forward that's going to add to both your workforce stability, your commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and also your resiliency is really focusing on training and retraining incumbent workers and having a plan to update their skills continually. Workers see that as an investment. I mean, that's kind of one of the new fringe benefits that workers are looking for is, we all recognize that technology is moving so quickly. You're not going to be able to hire a new person every time technology changes. You're going to have that built-in plan and those partnerships in place to really continually upskill your workforce. And that also demonstrates that commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, because the reality is we do have a very diverse workforce at the kind of at the entry level and at the point. What most of our employers and most of our companies need to have a better, more long-term plan is how to move those entry level employees, up through the chain of responsibility and earnings and in their organizations, and that's going to put them on a better footing for long-term demographic stability, long-term workforce stability, and in skill and talent resiliencies. So, I mean, I think that's really what employers need to have a plan for in general, and that's specifically with Leaders Up, what they've brought. They've added our capacity to have that long-range picture and to tie the pieces of anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion into actual workforce planning and skills and training preparation.
And Angel, may I hop in here and just underscore what Amber just said as it relates to the talent development supply chain, and what's necessary is the case for career pathways. It's like ensuring that employers not only recruit for entry-level talent, but also invest in their learning and development infrastructure so that individuals can continuously learn in alignment with the future of the sector or industry, in alignment with the competitive advantage of a company. So career pathways is a game changer around retention, around increased competitiveness, and also, again, increasing an employer's brand around investing in the talent in order to drive transformative results for the business and the communities that they operate within.
Thank you. And it seems like that's a little bit of a shift. Can you just really succinctly, what's the difference between the way that employers are thinking about career pathways now and the way that they thought about them, say, 18 months ago?
Well, with the worker shortage, or quote unquote worker shortage, employers have to be more efficient in how they engage their talent base to continue to drive business results, right? So beyond that, a lot of employers are now cross-training individuals on their in their workplaces, so they get more value out of an employee being in the workplace. So that's one major trend and shift. Beyond that, employers are also building public-private partnerships to expand their learning and development capacity so that they can continue to equip their talent base with the skills and competencies necessary to be successful. And in addition to that, employers are leveraging infrastructure of diversity and inclusion like employee resource groups to continue to mentor and develop entry-level talent through middle skill level talent and management. So there's more of a pull from employers of having their employees move up a career pathway that sparks career, academic, and economic mobility.
That's wonderful. And if you don't mind, Jeffrey, I want to continue to pick your brain a little bit here. Because we talked a lot about employers adapting and really taking what they've learned over the last 18 months and really trying to figure out how they change their business model. How has Leaders Up, given that we actually now had the great benefit of speaking directly to talent and employers, how have we taken what we learned in the last 18 months to really build that into now what we're calling the Evolve Employer Network?
Absolutely, Angel. Well, the first thing is challenging and supporting employers to become and operationalize their commitment to anti-racism. So a career pathway in itself closes disparities around education and employment, right? Beyond that, we're also working with employers to ensure that they not just invest in career pathways, but they actually invest in building the type of infrastructure necessary for them to be resilient and sustainable. And that's those public-private partnerships with community colleges, career and technical education. As it relates to young adults and the next generation of diverse talent, we have to work with young adults to reimagine how to be competitive in a new and reimagined economy. So our partnership with Google.org is a great example of us partnering with the tech sector to identify competencies that are in high demand across a multitude of different companies and industries so that individuals have the certifications necessary to be more proactive. Beyond that, we're working with employers to shift from a pedigree-based talent acquisition strategy based upon the school and degree that you got to a more competency-based strategy. So our partnership with Google also levels the playing field as it relates to access points that BIPOC talent usually did not have if they did not go to the top universities or schools in the nation. In addition to that, we've had to work with young adults to really reimagine how they promote their own talent brand. And we've implemented digital coaching and digital career readiness training in order to submit with young adults what they're tremendously great at, how to market their skills and talents, and then also how to ensure that as they stand out, they understand how to or who they want to align their talent base with. Some young adults are focused in on early career opportunities that provide growth. We have young adults that also are in the middle management that want to break through the glass ceiling. So we've been coaching them around that. So there's a multitude and spectrum of talent in the BIPOC community that we've been able to activate. The last thing I would say is that this commitment to anti-racism is bi-directional in ensuring that employers embrace this new vision as it relates to how diversity, equity, and inclusion actually can close racial disparities, as well as young adults in heightening their own inclusive leadership practices so they can continue to collaborate, add value, as well as grow within companies.
Thank you. And I can actually attest to, we've spent a lot of time really digesting information over the last 18 months at both the staff and the board level, and I'm very happy with where we landed. And as we heard from Amber, it's been extremely helpful. It looks like Amber is having some technical challenges, unfortunately, so we lost her again. I did have another question for her. But Jeffrey, I know we may have some folks from the philanthropic community on the stream. So for the philanthropic partners out there, what advice would you give the philanthropic partners as they think about how they fund career development, workforce development programs, how they might think about approaching that work differently, given now this like great resignation, the new paradigm that we're in?
A couple areas that I think philanthropy can lean in on. I think first, I mean, there's been a shift in the past, but even a greater shift needs to happen between investing in organizations that focus on placements rather than pathways, right? So really ensuring that the investments that are being made in workforce development organizations is focused on the supportive services, the actual coaching, and the delineated pathways necessary for a young adult to, again, move across a continuum that accelerates career, academic, and economic mobility and outcomes. I think the second thing that philanthropy can focus in on is building better partnerships with corporate social responsibility executives and corporations in general in order to drive more economic opportunity into communities as well. Philanthropy has a different proximity, a much closer proximity to community than in corporate America. So leveraging their proximity as a funnel of corporate investment becomes a tremendous opportunity as well.
And I know we're almost wrapping up, but Amber, I want to invite you in. You've talked quite a bit about economic recovery. And so I want to know if you could, I just asked Jeffrey some of his thoughts on what he would give advice to the philanthropic community. What advice would you give to other employers as they're thinking not only about adapting their new model, but really thinking about economic recovery? Do you have any advice or closing words that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to come back to a couple of the themes that I already hit upon. I think that through recovery, I mean, what we've really learned is that you need resiliency, right? And so what we've learned is what creates that resiliency is existing partnerships. Not one employer is going to be able to do everything. Talent recruitment and training and development and support are very expensive, right? So yes, you're going to have in-house resources to do that, but if you really want to be resilient and really be able to pivot and take advantage of opportunities through recovery, you have to do it in partnership with organizations like LeadersUp or organizations like LAWA, where we're a base of hundreds of employers. I mean, we have 40,000 badged employees on any given day working at the airport, so we're really like a small city. So something like that, it's totally interdependent. And then I would say also something where LeadersUp excels, and it's also a trend that's going to give employers more empowerment, as well as, I would say, funders, is really understanding the data, right? Understanding what are the demographics, who's in the community, how do the demographics change as you go up the career pathway? Because again, the employer is going to have more control over their workforce if they are focused on competency, developing that competency, inculcating that culture into their incumbent workforce and moving them up the ladder, as opposed to you're not going to always be able to run out and hire the exact person that you want. Or if you do, it's very expensive, right? So I think that what we've learned is that having those partnerships in place, like, it's kind of like the elections, right? Like every election cycle, you get the thing like, well, how come I haven't heard from the party since 4 years ago when you asked for me to vote for this candidate? Like it's that way. You have to have you can't just kind of run to different organizations or resources when you need to hire immediately. You're going to be better off having those partnerships in place, having a long-term vision, and then having the data and tracking the data to monitor how you're doing on implementing both your workforce development plan and strategy and your diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racist strategy, which really should be.
Oh, I'm so sad that we're having challenges. Why don't we? Well, Jeffrey, if you don't mind, I want to throw one more question out there for you, and that is, Amber talked about LAWA setting a policy to provide a living wage. Mm-hmm. One, can you define for those who may not know what a living wage is and why that's important? And then I think we can transition into questions from the audience.
Well, livable wage really takes into account the actual quality of life and cost of living in the city. And it is able to provide some delivery in the marketplace where it allows individuals to still be informed consumers, but at the same time, securing the type of financial stability necessary for them to grow and live and thrive in the city that they're operating within. It's $19.35 an hour in Los Angeles, which is well above the $15 minimum wage that the rest of the nation is fighting for. But I think what's really critical about, again, the commitment to paying a livable wage is also promoting that so that the talent base in this job seekers market can align with a brand that is focused on investing in its people. I think it's like the Henry Ford model. I take care of my people because the people take care of the company. It's retreating back to that model and investing not just in wages, but investing in training and development and investing more importantly, I think, in the safety of workers, both physical safety and psychological safety.
Thank you. So why don't we see if we have any questions? I know we're running up on time. Let's see, does the team have any questions they'd like to send our way? No? None so far? Okay. Well, Amber, can I pose the same question to you? I don't know if you heard the question that I posed to Jeffrey about the living wage. Why did LAWA decide to set a policy to provide a living wage of $19.35 as opposed to the $15 minimum wage that's being kind of touted around?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of factors, right? I think let's be real. I mean, workers fought for it, right? I mean, this was a workers organized and fought for higher wages. And so that's the Great Resignation is, as Jeffrey mentioned, a reflection of workers having increased, bargaining power in the marketplace, and they're using it in different ways, demanding higher wages, and also, I know everyone here based locally, we're aware there's, probably going to be a strike happening soon with the theatrical and stage workers, and there's strikes happening. So, I mean, labor power is always going to have a determination of where that market rate ends up. But at the end of the day, I mean, Los Angeles World Airports is owned by the city of Los Angeles. We're a public, we're a public entity. So we feel that if we are using, public resources to promote public good, I mean, part of our portfolio is not just the economic bottom line, but it's also the corporate social responsibility bottom line. It's also that ability to, again, attract talent. At the end of the day, your workers have got to be able to survive and feed their families and meet their basic human needs, or they will not be able to be productive workers, and you will not be able to retain them. So I think it's a combination of stakeholder demand, worker demand, and just the realities of the talent that you need to keep in place. And at the end of the day, you want a stable workforce. Obviously, the lower wages you go, the less stable those workforce are, right? So when you're building $15 billion worth of construction, or you're landing airplanes on a tiny postage postage stamp size of land, and you have to run 24/7 365 operations, certain things you can't just workforce talent isn't a nice to have, it's a must have, right? So there's a very basic minimum standard that we found has to be honored in order to be able to meet our operational and business case and stakeholder needs.
That's great. And then briefly, can you talk about how did your supply chain respond to the policy? Was it something that people really adopted fairly easily, or was there some pushback?
So this is LAWA. Well, first of all, Los Angeles was one of the first cities in the nation to. Oh, sorry.
Can you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I was saying LAWA, the city of Los Angeles was one of the first major cities in the nation to adopt a living wage ordinance. So, we've had a lot of practice at this. This has been going on since the early 90s. So the LAWA, the current airport living wage has, adapted and grown over time as the economy has grown. So it's basically a part of our culture and a part of our business foundation, that when you seek opportunity at Los Angeles World Airports as an employer, as a contractor, as a vendor of any sort, it's known that you're going to need to pay the living wage, and that has to just be built into your business plan. And we have, the living wage increases are regular, so the employers can again forecast that into their overhead forecast. We know what those wage increases are going to be. Of course, with COVID, that was, the scope and the scale and the depth of the impacts could not have been foreseen, in exactly the way that they manifested. So you have to demonstrate flexibility. So what Los Angeles World Airports did was we offered rent relief. We had to negotiate with our tenants to give them some relief and work with them through the pandemic and the economic recovery, and we still are doing that. But it was definitely important for us that those that could remain operational and continue to pay living wages, that they do so. And of course, while they're open and operational, they had no option but to pay living wages. So it was important for us to support the employer's long-term sustainability as well as obviously the workforce too, and they're tied together.
Thank you. That's great. Perfect. So it looks like we don't have any questions from our audience. I think maybe we're being so thorough on our responses that we haven't generated any questions. But why don't I pass it back to both of you for any closing thoughts? Amber, you have maybe 30 seconds or so. Any closing thoughts you'd like to share before I pass it to Jeffrey?
Again, I think that I'm pleased at the outcomes of the hiring event, and we are very proud and excited about the current impact and the long-term promise of our ongoing partnership with LeadersUp. But more, maybe above all else, we're very, very excited to really be building a model that we think it can be adapted to different markets, to different regions, because the fundamentals are there. We're really talking about demand-driven workforce development. We're talking about integrated diversity, equity, inclusion, and data monitoring and tracking to make sure that you can plan for resilience, plan for sustained operations. And so we think this is a great model and a great opportunity for public-private partnerships, and we're very proud to be on the forefront of carrying this partnership out with LeadersUp.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you for partnering with LeadersUp, also for joining us on this chat today. And I'd love to pass it over to Jeffrey. But before I do that, want to thank everyone who's from the team and everyone on our social media channels that's joined us. Hope you've learned a lot. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to learn more. And Jeffrey, why don't I pass it on to you now for any closing remarks?
Thank you, Angel, for your facilitation of today's dialogue, and Amber for joining us today. We really appreciate the bet that LAWA took on LeadersUp. This is the 4th largest airport in the world. So we think about being able to leverage the work of this partnership, to Amber's point, to scale and ensure that other public agencies and entities like Los Angeles World Airport become a force to advance anti-racism and expanded access to equitable opportunity is tremendous. I want to invite our audience today to join us on our 100-day challenge. We're also very happy to work with you in activating it with your team. It's a learning journey that will equip you with the insights, resources needed to identify and dismantle systemic racism in the workplace. Again, the 100-day challenge is a tool to set the foundational knowledge, vocabulary, conversations that Amber spoke about that we did with Los Angeles World Airport. To sign up, visit leadersup.org/100day. Again, that's leadersup.org/100day. If you're interested in working with us as an employer partner, we welcome you to join the Evolve Employer Network. We'll have information up at the end of this broadcast where you can have, where you'll have access to who to contact on the LeadersUp team. And I just want to thank all of our guests, Amber, and our partnership across this just tremendous year of work against the backdrop of COVID-19. We were able to come together, set a clear vision, stay true to that vision, and be agile. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to impart upon all the listeners today is that in the uncertainties of the marketplace, whether that be the economy or our labor market, it's tremendously important that we be agile, demand-driven, and community-minded. And I'm so thankful that we have a partnership with LAWA that allows LeadersUp to demonstrate how technical assistance can help corporations really advance their commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion into a real-life, measurable strategy that has transformative impact on the communities that they operate within. So, Angel, I want to thank you again for facilitating today. I want to thank our audience for joining us. And I want you to know, audience and beyond, is that what we're doing with LAWA, we intend to scale with other corporations. We intend to scale with other airports as well. And LAWA is the model that just took this bull by the horns and continues to shine as a beacon of opportunity and equity across the Los Angeles city and Los Angeles County.
It's been a pleasure being with all of you today. And with that, I think we can bid everyone a great afternoon.
Excellent.
All right. Bye.